Good morning, everybody. We're going to do a quick knife review, and then I'm going to use this as an excuse to do a quick rant, if you will. So stick with me here. There's method to my madness. So, I go through waves with knives, with things that appeal to me and stuff, and my collection always changes and stuff. And since YouTube saw fit to take away all my monetization off of anything that was firearm related, which represented 90% of my revenue, I'm going to go back to reviewing some of the budget knives. So one that I found, I'm doing unboxing. Hopefully it's pretty cool. I'm going to go through it real quick and the specs and stuff. And then we're going to talk about the bigger picture with knives from this particular country of origin. So this is a $29 knife. You go, oh, it's going to suck. Let's find out if it does. Comes with a pack of gel. Don't eat that. Simple box. It's a box. Not going to waste time discussing that because nobody cares what the box looks like. You may think, what are all these over here for? Well, they all have a common theme that we're going to discuss in a moment. So, don't laugh at the name. This is a knife from a company called Petrified Fish. Yes, it is from China, as are all of these knives. So this comes in, let's go with the specs real quick, and then we'll do a close-up and review and see what we like. Let's see, overall length, 7.68 inches. The blade length is 3.35. Blade thickness is 0.093, so fairly thin blade, but it is a high, all the way to the top, flat grind, so it should be a really nice slicer. 5960 Rockwell, satin finish, and it has a sandalwood handle, weighs in at 2.2 ounces. Does have a thumb stud. I don't know if that's ball bearings or not, but I almost think that it is. We'll check on that later. But it does have a thumb stud, and the way that thing just flips out is effortless and fast. And it does have a liner lock. And what they did here was, instead of milling out the plastic, they just extended the lock bar just slightly, so you can grab that, push it out of the way. Blade centering is pretty good. I mean, I guess if you look at it closely, it might be a tiny bit to this side, but I'm not one of those people that, oh my God, my knife isn't exactly, it's off, 2/1000ths of an inch. It's a crap knife. I have to get rid of it. Knife guys can be so weird with that stuff. It's like, as long as it's not visibly, like, obviously off and it's not rubbing, I don't care, as long as it's centered-ish. But that is pretty damn close. This is a $29 knife. It's Sandic. I think it's a 14C steel, so, it's nothing to write home about. But what I wanted was something that was, I've been on a kick lately for knives that are a little more traditional looking and a little bit more gentlemanly, and that seemed like it would fit the bill. Can't say I'm too crazy about this thing here, so I'm gonna take that off, and if I can't untie the leather, I will simply just cut that off. But you've got a small back spacer there, no pocket clip, just a really nice little blade. It is very sharp to the touch. Blade feels even, doesn't feel like it's more to one side or not. If I had a piece of paper here, I recently cleaned up my office, so I don't actually have any extra pieces of paper laying around for me to test it, but I will go out on a limb and say that that would be extremely sharp and slice paper like nobody's business. It has a very fine edge. And with the thick, the blade being so thin, I'm pretty sure that would do a nice push test. Let's see. Anything else about it before we get into the rant portion, as I just open that up into my hand. That is, I guess, a sheep's foot. And it's a good size knife. I can get a handle on it, but it's nice and thin. Should make a good slicer. No blade play in any direction, so I'm pretty sure that is ball bearings and not, yeah, that's got to be ball bearings. Because normally with washers, you got to have just a tiny bit, you have a hint of a wiggle in there to get it to open that smooth. And there's nothing. The blade's flexing because it's a thinner blade, but there's no wiggle up and down or anything. And that is the littlest push, and it just flies right open, and it's not a heavy blade. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't know, it's not a tank. It's not gonna take a beating. like some knives, but a lot of guys, here's one of my recent acquisitions, my Boker cattle knife. This is a splendid knife. However, with tax, this is a $250 knife. Made the old way in Germany and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's better materials, better craftsmanship, and all that. But not everybody wants to spend $250 on a pocket knife. You can spend cheap money and get a quality knife, and that's what we're going to go through some of this stuff real quick and talk about the country of origin that a lot of knife guys, not all, a lot of them are coming around to it, but a lot of knife guys are all, bent out of shape. Oh, it's China. They're still in the mindset of everything from China is crap. Well, that's what they said about Japanese cars in the 70s and 80s. And yet the most reliable cars on the road and the best value are Toyota, Honda, Nissan, stuff like that. So the Japanese cars that everybody was so, oh, Jap crap back in the day. And I remember that, being 49 years old. I remember my parents looking at their first Mazda GLC station wagon. And of course, some of the friends are like, you don't want to buy that Japanese crap. Well, meanwhile, their American-made car cost more, was in the shop half the time. I don't think that Mazda ever had a problem, other than me and my brother spilling milkshakes in the back seat or whatever. They made a better car, and it is what it is. And as a result, it forced the American companies to have to step up their game. At first, there was resistance to it, but then they realized, hey, everyone's buying Japanese. We better increase our quality and come up with better designs and stop selling the same old shit. And that was good for the market overall. So while the American automaking industry took a hit, in the end, it made everybody better. They had to be in order to compete. Wanting to pretend you're a patriot, 'cause I only buy American, only goes so far. If your car's constantly breaking down and it costs you an extra, 10% higher than the Japanese cars that almost never break down at the time, then, you showing your patriotism and puffing yourself up and telling your friends what a great person you are. And while they didn't realize it at the time, they were virtue signaling. I don't know if that term existed back then. At some point you go, am I wasting my money just so I can tell everybody how I'm a good American? We live in a global economy. The world is not the same as it was 50 years ago or even 20 years ago. Okay, it's not nothing. I was watching the video and it kind of prompted me to think about this and kind of maybe put it more in my own words, because it's an argument I have made before. And that is, people think, oh, if it's from China, it's automatically crap. That is not the case. I'm recording this on my iPhone 13 Pro. Even though I prefer Android, I also like the Apple Watch. I mean, you can't argue whether you're an Android fanboy or not. You can't argue that the quality of Apple isn't the best out there, or as good as anything else out there. China these days are making good products. They're using good materials. A lot of American companies are outsourcing to China, and they are, as long as the quality control is in place and someone keeps an eye on them, they do a good job. And the argument may be, well, if you're giving money to China, you're giving money to the Chinese government. I understand that. China's not our friend. But a lot of you may be also gun guys. You have Russian AKs or Russian SKSs. I mean, the Russian AKs are the ones a lot of people kind of lust after. Do you not buy those because, oh, commie bastards? Or do you go, yeah, they're commie bastards and Putin certainly isn't our friend. But, there's, a lot of times they're regarded as some of the best out there. And so you're willing to set that aside because it's a good product. And so, but there's a lot of FUDs and folks on the whatchamacallit side that do the same thing here with knives. And, well, it's got to be American made. Here's the thing. This is a basic knife. It's not a gas station knife. This is actually like a decent quality knife. If this were made by Gerber or somebody here in the U.S., this would probably be an $80 knife. To use that steel instead of some, horrible stuff. I mean, you look at all your Smith & Wessons and a lot of your Gerbers and Columbia Rivers and stuff. A lot of those knives are just, they're crap. They're 440A stainless. The Rockwell hardness is debatable. But let's look at some of the other Chinese knives. So there's We Knives, and their smaller brand underneath them that's a little more value-oriented is Civivi. This is a great knife. This is Micarta. This is carbon fiber. This is Nitro V steel. It's all well-rounded. It's very well crafted. It's a beautiful, elegant little knife, and it's $53. Yes, I said 53. You've got one of the best all-around pocket knives of the last couple of years, the Civivi Elementum D2 steel. Again, beautifully crafted blades. Micarta, ball bearing pivots. This one could be bronze phosphor washers. I think that one's bronze phosphor washers. The other one's ball bearings. But just beautifully executed. Great knife, $54. You've got the Asticus here with Damascus steel. You say, oh, it's a little flashy. Yeah, this one is. That's the one they had in stock, and that's what I went through. But again, beautifully crafted, beautiful sweet action, wicked sharp hollow ground Damascus blade with carbon fiber. This is like $79. You've got the Civivi Riffle. This is one of the Sandvik steels. I don't remember which one, if it's 14C or something like that. But again, really nice micarta, beautiful, beautiful sweet action, really nice knife, beautifully executed. And again, the attention to detail, the insides being milled out for lightness, all the chamfering and all the beveling on the blades, the jimping, there's nothing crude on here. This is all really, really well executed. That's a $50 knife. Steel Will has the cut jack. Great knife, D2 steel, FRN handle. You pick these up for $44. I mean, this is a really sweet blade with a nice, generous finger choil. Really nice cutting edge. You got another brand out of China, Kubi. Newcomer, thick D2 steel, G10, really nice action. That, I believe, is ball bearings, but just beautiful. Lockup is tight. This is a good, sturdy knife. These things are razor sharp out of the box. I've got one here from the James brand. This one uses VG10. It's using the new, their version of the Axis lock. This was $170. And you might say it's a little overpriced for G10 and bronze washers and stuff. I know there's you're paying for some of the image. But again, there's knives that are like this that are Kaisers and stuff, and they're under $100. They're really good, solid knives. You've got Vespa. And I know it's a Microtech, and we're going to talk about Microtech in a minute. But that was $150. S35 VN. Inside, it's machined beautifully. This has been as reliable as any of the Microtechs I've owned, or the Heretics, or the Hosts. It's a great knife, great action. They took the Microtech Combat Trudon and basically, tweaked it. They put a carbon inlay actually in the blade. It's so well finished, you don't even feel the seam there. It's beautiful. Great action. Very cool knife. China is cranking out some great things. And so I've seen some of the arguments, because in the news over the last few months is Microtech has partnered with, I think it was Reich, to make their SOCOM Bravo. It is an amazing looking knife. It is a knife that when Microtech makes something like that, it's over $1,000. Yet partnering with Reich and making it with titanium and actually upgraded features and stuff like that over the Microtech version, it's $340. You can't find them because as soon as they come in, I've got alerts set up on every knife page. They immediately are sold out. And so a lot of people are pissed, all the purists, like, oh, this isn't what we want to, and all the fuds and boomers are getting upset because everything's got to be American. We don't live in that world anymore. Harley Davidsons are made overseas, a lot of them. A lot of the parts are sourced from overseas. He used that analogy of, looking at Harley Davidson, and I can liken this to Ducati and other companies. There's a loyal fan base that gets all wrapped up in, the brand identity, because that's part of why they're a fan of the brand, is because then they want some of that, that's the whole fanboy thing. They think that Apple is the greatest, innovator in the world, even though they haven't innovated anything in the phone world since 2007, but they've convinced themselves that it is. And by owning that, they're part of some elite, phone computing strike force, if you will, that by buying Apple products, that somehow that image will transfer to them. And so that's what they identify as. I identify as a Ford guy, I identify as a Glock guy, or a SIG guy. You'll identify as this or that, or you're a Dodge Ram versus an F-150, whatever. Everybody picks something that they think has some perceived social value to it, and they align themselves with it so that social value, that social currency, if you will transfer to them. because I'm this guy. It's no different than a sports team, right? You know, when whoever wins the sports ball game next week, and I don't even know who's playing because I don't give a crap about sports, but the diehard fans, you know, they're going to refer to it as "we won." Well, you're sitting on your couch 1,000 miles away, and you probably never thrown a football. How did you win anything? Well, they're my team. Oh, you pay their salaries? Are you the owner? No, I just like them, so I claimed them and I bought their shirts so I could tell everybody that I'm a Steelers fan or whoever the hell's in the game. And so when they win, I win. It's the same mindset. This is something that pervades the human psyche and things like that. Some of us are more susceptible than others. I have brand preferences. I like the fancy stuff. I like my Microtechs, Hogues, Heretics. I like the higher end stuff, Guardian Tacticals. I have a lot of those $200 to $350 knives. Got a bunch of them. But I also like a bargain on something I can throw in my pocket. I can use it for several years. And if it breaks at some point, and I don't know that it will unless I'm just beating on it or being stupid with it, but if it does, I'm out $29. But this is also like decent Sandvik steel. It's also well constructed. This is not a gas station knife. Gas station knives, a lot of them are made in China. Some are made in other places. There's gas station quality knives made in the US. They're cheap stamped out parts with subpar materials thrown together by minimum wage workers that don't give a crap. And I understand not liking China, the government, but you know what? The Chinese people are mainly victims of the government. They've been oppressed for 70 years, and just holding it against them and saying, well, anything comes out of China. Everything you own and you use, even if you buy a Samsung and, well, that's made in South Korea. Yeah, but half the parts come from China. The TV that you're watching this on, your laptop, your anything Apple, your refrigerator, your microwave you use to heat up your food, half the guts came from China. So sitting here worrying about your car, how many parts in your car were manufactured in China? Tons. And so everybody worrying about where it comes from. You know, this one I bought off Amazon, but a lot of these, this, I bought it at a local knife store, Old Town Cutlery over in Cumming. You know, so while the knife may have been made in China, you know, it got shipped over here and U.S. truckers are delivering it, and there's U.S. warehouses that serve as the distributors, and there's people being paid to, you know, move pallets and stuff around and ship it out. There's truckers that are U.S. truckers that are driving it to the stores. There's U.S. employees in the stores working and selling these knives. They're taking those profits and paying their people. They're paying U.S. taxes. So regardless of where the knife came from, I don't see a problem with that. And people are really upset about Microtech partnering with China. Well, here's the thing, you know, regardless of what you think you know about Anthony Marfione, and I'm not going to sit here and badmouth the guy. He's built a great product and brand and all that stuff. But Anthony, if you know him or you know any of the stories about him, you can certainly Google it. I won't get into it here. Anthony takes himself and his reputation seriously. There's been reviewers that said something negative about his reviews, or some supposedly copied a design from Kershaw, something like to that effect. I'm not making that claim. This is what the claim was at the time. And Anthony took his ass to court. And Anthony has gone after people who have badmouthed his company and things like that, and sued them for libel or defamation and things. My point here is he's a guy who does make a really good quality product, kind of built that US OTF industry, and he takes his name and his company and his image really freaking seriously. That's my point here. Whether you agree with his tactics or not legally, he's a dude who really takes himself and his product seriously. And he will take your ass to court to defend it if he feels you've slighted him in that way that would affect his business. The fact that he is partnering with a company called Reich out of China to produce that knife, I think says something. He's willing, you know, he's not just saying, oh yeah, use my design. He's selling it through the US. He's farmed out the manufacture to them, and they are producing a product that is on par quality-wise with amazing materials to anything he's offering. But he can't find workers here. He can't, you know, get enough production ramped up to do some of the things he wants to do at that price point. And so he's brought in a manufacturer who has a state-of-the-art facility. And these shops, these are not giant shops that necessarily just crank out everything and the quality control is loosey-goosey. We, Artisan, and whatever sub-brands they've got, Reich, Riat, a lot of these Chinese companies, these are smaller shops. Now, they may have good mass production capabilities, but these are smaller shops made up by people who are really passionate about blades and design and manufacture. They're putting out really high quality products. And that's why something like Anthony Marfione is willing to, partner with them. I have no problem buying a knife from China. Yes, I get it. Oh, it goes to the Chinese government, and the Chinese government are scumbags. But the Chinese people aren't. The people making the knives aren't. They're just trying to make a living, and frankly, they're doing a great job. I'm not going to judge the entire country by the leadership. People might look at President Brandon here and think what you want about him. Is it fair to say, well, the entire country, the U.S., is just to be written off because we have a doddering old fool who's senile at the helm and is letting the country, run itself into the ground because he's asleep at the wheel? Is it fair to judge all Americans because of him? No. We buy their products, they buy our products. It's a global economy, and just sitting here whining about, China, 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 you're being a FUD. Grow up. There's some good stuff coming out of there. I have American-made knives. I like American-made knives. If there were knives out there, if an American company was making a knife that looked as sweet as that and had as good a quality in construction and materials and was just this beautiful, elegant piece for $50, I'd buy a bunch of them in a heartbeat and give them out for presents to my friends at Christmas time. But you can't get this for $50 made here. You just can't. That's the reality. If you want a knife like this, made in the US, exactly this way with these materials and this fit and finish, you're easily up over $100. And at that point, it may not be worth it to you to say, well, for $100 for that, but $50, I'll buy that all day. And if I use it and somehow break it in 5 years, I'll buy another one for $50. It's not a big deal. But these are really well executed. These are beautiful, beautiful blades. You're not going to find a much better cheap, elegant gentleman's EDC tool than an Elementum. You're just not. So this one's from Petrified Fish. I've got a knife coming from Artisan. I've got also one coming from Case. So there's a US-made knife that'll be getting reviewed probably Sunday. But this is a beautiful little knife. It's nice. It's kind of classy. You put it up against the Boker and you're going to say, all right, it's not as nice. But then again, $250, $29. I'll put a link in there to Amazon if you want to pick one of these up. For $31 with shipping and taxes, why wouldn't you? Is my point. You got one with a wooden handle. For a couple bucks more, they sell one with a nice Damascus blade that I think it's VG10 in the middle and then something else on the outer layers, almost like a San Mai. It's a cool-ass little blade. It's really nice. It's going to be wicked sharp with that high grind and that thin blade. Nice sharp stabby point. Almost pushed that into my finger. Wasn't expecting it to be that sharp. But anyway, that's kind of my rant is, people who just sit there and, I got into an argument with one guy on one of the videos about the Microtech collaboration with Reich. And, the guy keeps calling himself, I'm a patriot, I'm a patriot. First of all, if your definition of a patriot is not buying knives made outside the U.S., and the fact that you have to keep telling people how you're a patriot and you had to remind me 5 times that you're a patriot, you're not a patriot. That's how that works. Rush Limbaugh used to say all the time, greatness doesn't need to be explained. It should be obvious. If you have to run around telling everybody how great you are, there's a good chance it's because nobody, you're not great. You're having to convince them. And more importantly, you're having to convince yourself. But there are some really good quality blades coming out of China. There's shit coming out of China as well. As a consumer, take the 3 minutes, it takes to Google and find the difference between the good knives and the bad. But there's a good list of Chinese companies that are cranking out, and a lot of custom knife makers are going to companies like Reate, R-E-A-T-E, and saying, here's what I want you to build. I've designed this knife. These are the materials. I want to hit the $500 price point, and I want this to be like a custom knife. I want it to be beautiful, and where someone picks it up and they're just like, wow, and staring at it. And they will do that. They will build that knife, and it will be a freaking amazing. And if you paid a company to do it here in the U.S., it'd be $1,000 at least. That was the problem with the U.S. cars in the 80s. There was a study I read years ago. I can't find it because it's been so long. But during the 80s, they looked at what the average price the average hourly cost to build a car, factoring in parts and labor, taxes, wages, all that kind of stuff, benefits for the employees. And it was like $77 per hour to create a car in the US, and it was 44 for Toyota to do it in Japan. It was a big difference. And the car from Japan was way higher quality and much more reliable. You know, you say you want to do business in America, but, you know, here it's really expensive to do business here. And if you got better results for it, maybe you'd say it's worth it. But oftentimes, if you have a $50 knife from America and a $50 knife from China, that $50 knife from China is going to run circles around the US-made $50 knife. It just is. So, like I said, when you're buying these from American retailers, there's all that whole supply chain, shipping, warehousing, the stores, the employees, all that's those are Americans. They're having a product to sell at a price point that people want, and they're making money. It's going into our economy. And if it happens to be feeding a family in China who's working at the factory building these things, more power to them. They got a right to live and make a living too. Regardless of what the government's doing, you know, the people over there are more victims than anything. And frankly, the people that make this, I'd love to shake their hand. You know what? They take pride in what they're doing. For whatever meager wages they're getting, they're putting out a nice product, and it shows. So just hating on a company, well, because it's from China, whatever. Chicoms makes some great AKs and some other weapons and SKSs. Russia makes great AKs and things like that, and those are kind of sought after. Just because that country's not our friend doesn't mean I'm going to pass up on something. And again, a lot of the people running around screaming, China, 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 are doing so from their Chinese iPhone. You know, what makes knives sacred? Oh, that's the line. You know, everything else in my life, the truck I drive, the refrigerator that holds my food, the oven that I heat my food with, half the materials in my house, my TV, all this other stuff, everything is in full or in part from China. But when it comes to knives, that's the line in the sand that we must not cross. Give me a break. Grow up. You're limiting yourself. You know, one of the guys I was watching on talking about this whole Microtech and China thing is, you know, companies have to learn to compete. Harley Davidson has had to learn that the hard way. You know, everything American and old school. Well, they had to change their tune because for years Harley Davidson was hemorrhaging cash because their small but vocal core customers, the boomers, the Easy Rider crowd, they didn't, anytime there was a proposed change, we don't want change. It's not what we're used to. And so they just wanted the same old thing. Well, there's only so much market for that, especially when that boomer demographic is hanging up their assless chaps and getting out of riding. The TikTok generation doesn't care about Easy Rider. The TikTok generation doesn't care about nostalgia. It's a foreign concept to them. It might as well be the Middle Ages. They don't remember the 70s because they didn't exist then. And so having old, heavy, hot, air-cooled bikes doesn't appeal to them, especially at that price point. So what's Harley doing? Saying, you know what? Screw the boomers. We're building the new Sportster S. We're going to build the new Pan American. And guess what? They sell every unit they could make of the new air-cooled, lighter, cooler running, way more horsepower and performance-oriented with anti-lock brakes and ride-by-wire and TFT dashboard. You know, they're getting their act together with technology. And while the old guard is lamenting about the old ways being gone, Harley just had a good quarter and they're finally starting to make money again. You got to adapt to the world or you go the way of the dodo. And so a company like Microtech going to China for the manufacture of some of their premium knives, it's not the end of the world, folks. China's making great products. This one's more cheap. It's only $30, but you can go spend $700 on a Chinese knife, and that would be like buying a $1,500 US custom. There are some really nice things coming out of China. And so, you know, this misplaced sense of patriotism with some folks, I think, probably borders on racism, saying that, well, you shouldn't buy it because of where it came from. Well, people may not like our politics abroad. May not like our current president, might not like our last president, you know? Judging the people and judging a product because of whatever asshat sits at the helm in the government at that particular moment, I just don't subscribe to that. I'm going to go where the bargains are. I'm going to go where, and it's not just bargains like, oh, it's just cheap, buy anything cheap. No, I want something of quality. I want something good. I'm not going to buy, point is, I'm going to buy quality regardless of where it's from. And I'm not going to buy crap. Just because it's in the US doesn't mean it's good. It may not even be as good as what you're calling crap because it's from China. The China blade may oftentimes be better. And when it comes to these value lines in that $40 to $60 range, they absolutely are better than anything made here. They just are. Even if you go pick up a buck knife, I have nothing against buck knives, but go pick up a $50 buck knife, that feels like a $50 knife. This does not. This does not feel like a $50 knife. This feels like something you get from buck that's well into over 100. It's just how it is. So anyway, that's my combination of the Petrified Fish Model 719. I'll put a link in there. But this is going to be a great little slicer, great little pocket knife, food prep, anything like that. I will get rid of this stupid lanyard. I don't like lanyards. No, screw it. I'm just going to cut that bad boy off. Let's see if I do this without cutting myself. Just go. Oh, God. I was expecting a pressure to go through. It was just, a basic push cut. I barely put any pressure on that and just went right through that leather. Rawhide. But there you go. Petrified Fish. I've got one from Artisan coming called the Sirius. I think you're going to like. $54, and it is a wicked little knife, looking little knife. G10 scales. I think it's D2 steel. I don't remember. Might be a Sandvik steel. We'll figure that out when it comes in. And then I got a case trapper. Got a US made. It's a red bone, jigged bone, two-blade trapper knife coming. That'll be more in line with my Boker and some of my more classic knives. But tell me what you think. I'll put the link out there. But this is a great little knife. I love the wood. It's it's shiny. It's well polished, but it's got some grip to it. It's not textured, but it doesn't feel like it's going to slide out of my hand. Yeah, I'm gonna carry that. Cool little knife. Anyway, there you go. Knife review and a rant all in one.